There are years that ask questions and years that shatter everything you thought you knew about this world. This, this was the year that rewrote my story without my permission. Welcome back to From Abuse to Abundance. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is Chapter 3, the year Innocence ended. Before we continue, I need you to know this isn't just another chapter. This is the dividing line, the moment where my life split into before and after. 10 years, 3,650 nights, each one a battle for survival in a war I never asked to fight. It started with an introduction, the kind that seems ordinary on the surface. But some introductions are really endings in disguise. The end of safety, the end of trust, the end of childhood. This episode isn't about the monster in the shadows. It's about the little girl who learned to live with shadows as companions, who learned to fold herself small enough to disappear, who somehow kept a spark of light alive in complete darkness. If you're listening from your own darkness, if you're carrying the weight of a stolen childhood, I need you to hear this. Your story isn't over, and neither was mine. Before we begin, I need to give a trigger warning. There will be graphic mentions of childhood sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and narcissistic abuse. If you or someone who's listening needs support, you can contact the RAINN National Sexual Assault Hotline. It's available 24/7 at 1-800-656-HOPE. You can also swipe up. This direct access to the hotline is in the show notes. It's also here in the description on YouTube. If you are outside of the US, and I know we have millions of listeners in countries all over the world, please Google a support hotline that is native to your country or your region. I promise you there is one and there is help. You are not alone. This is Chapter 3, the year Innocence ended.
If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multimillionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash-making advice. Now let's get to it.
There's something that is so common that people who've been through a lot of stuff in life tend to do, and that's make things much harder than they need to be. I see it all the time when it comes to people coming to me wanting to get more clients and cash online for their business. They feel like they're trying to solve some Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Everyone's shouting in different directions to do this thing and do that thing. And then you get so overwhelmed and exhausted and you end up in a freeze mode. You say you're stuck, but it's really you're frozen in fear because you don't know which way to go. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste your money. You really want this to work. And you just want someone to tell you what is the best way to go about these things so you can get the results that you want as fast as possible and have fun in the meantime. Because as you hear me say all the time on here, if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. Go get a jobby job. Stay at your jobby job. You didn't start your business to become a content creator who is just pumping out endless videos and endless emails and endless offers only to get people trickling in. Here is what no one is telling you, but I will. There are really two core skills you need to master to turn your expertise into consistent cash flow. Not 20, not 10, but two. And inside my famous ProjectME Posse business coaching and money membership, I show you exactly what these two income generating skills are and how to implement them into your business for maximum impact, maximum results with minimum overwhelm. No more information overload. No more throwing a bunch of stuff into the void, hoping something sticks. Just clear, proven strategies that create predictable income, even while you sleep, even while you're luxuriating, while leveraging the power of the millions and millions of people online all over the world in all different time zones. And right now, we are approaching our final week of our biggest Black Friday sale ever. The first 33 new members will receive over $2,800 in luxe business building gifts that will accelerate your journey to consistent 5-figure months. This isn't another membership. This isn't just another place you're going to get lost and not show up. You're going to be excited to show up every week for the weekly live trainings with me and other special guest experts. You are also getting my brand new In the Abundance Zone guided journal and planner, 90 days to manifest anything that you want in your life. This is one of the things you also get for free for joining right now. If you select the annual membership, you get 2 months for free. This makes it like $2 a day. This is a no-brainer. There's also a month-to-month option, which you get $50 off the first month right now. You know what to do. Make your move. Go to the Black Friday sales page at projectmewithttiffany.com/Black Friday 24. You can swipe up. It's in the show notes. It's in my link in bio on Instagram and TikTok at Project Me with Tiffany. Also here on Project Me TV on YouTube in the description. Don't wait. Pause this episode, sign up and come back. Make a move that's going to pay off for decades to come in the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, as long as you show up and you're willing and you're open and committed to absolutely changing your financial story for the better. I'm here to show you the way. The year I was going into my first year of middle school, 6th grade, I noticed a shift in my mom. I was so hyper vigilant. I could pick up on every nuance and every move, as one does who grows up in a highly dysfunctional and toxic household to protect yourself. I could tell by the weight of how her high heels were against the wood floor, what kind of mood she was in, and even the pace that she was walking at. I knew basically if I needed to be on high alert, or this was going to be a day that I could actually exhale for a little bit, or maybe even just for an hour. And she seemed to have this even larger than life persona. If I look back at it, I would say almost some form of narcissist mania. Her business was thriving. So there was lots of money, lots of accolades, lots of attention. I am going into middle school, so I suppose I'm less work and require, I don't know, less tending to. But I also had a nanny for all of this as well. So I'm not sure how much tending to I really required, given that I was always on extreme best behavior. And my mom had to do a lot of hiring for her business because it was growing so rapidly. And the business, as I told you in a previous chapter, was run out of our home. And there were a lot more bodies and a lot more moving parts. There were delivery trucks coming and going. The doorbell was constantly ringing. These 10 phone lines with that old school phone ring that you couldn't control the volume on was constantly going. We had an intercom system in the house that pumped that elevator style easy jazz music through the house. And all of the bing bong banging, the ring-a-ling-a-linging, all of it started so early in the morning. It was so jarring. And I was never a morning person, and I'm still not. I mean, why would I have wanted to be a morning person? One of the only times that I got any sort of reprieve and any peace was when I was asleep. So why would I want to wake up in the morning to that? And she came down the hall. She would dramatically fling open the curtains, rip the covers off the bed, and tell me to get up. There was no gentle kisses, arm tickles, waffles. No, it was get up, and it was very loud. It was dramatic. It instantly got my nervous system going. And this is probably when just that permanent state of fight, flight, or freeze, like the cortisol was just always pumping in my system. And it became such a familiar feeling to me that anything other than that felt like I was dying, felt like something was wrong, made me feel not alive. And I remember that was also the year the notes started. The notes where she didn't even sign mom often. It was often signed with her first name. And I would get up, I would go to my bathroom, and on the counter in my bathroom, on her company stationery, which was, of course, with an illustration of herself on it. No wonder why I was so hesitant to start a personal brand. It felt so narcissistic and it felt so familiar. And I didn't even realize that at the time. And it was typed on an actual typewriter. This was before it was affordable to have like a bunch of computers or even like word processors. And my mom really seemed to enjoy the sound of like an electric typewriter. And she would pound those keys with her long red nails ferociously and with intent and anger, not with a zest and not with passion. There was anger and angst in there and frustration in there that you could hear from those keys, to the point where certain letters would even like fling off and she would have to get them repaired. And this letter, I remember, oh, I'm getting emotional, picking it up, and my innocent 10, 11-year-old in me thought, oh, mom left me a letter. Like, that's really, like I was excited. The letter was a chore list. It was a list of all the things that I had to do before I could do any form of playing or seeing friends. And this was not a standard chore list that a normal parent would perhaps give their kids. These were age inappropriate chores, and they escalated based on how much she hated me, how much she resented me, and also my age. It escalated with that. And they could be cleaning the entire interior of her car with Q-tips. It could be taking all the trash out to the end of the drive. And keep in mind, there were at least 60 people coming and going from that house daily. And this business was being run out of the house. And it wasn't like for 8 hours a day. I mean, this was like 12 hours a day. And then there were all those parties. You can imagine the amount of trash, to where I would have to use a wheelbarrow and go back and forth and back and forth with no help. And that was another chore. There was me in the summer having to paint the wrought iron fence that surrounded the property with no one showing me how to paint. Another favorite would be pulling all of the weeds in the garden. Well, this isn't some tiny plot of land garden. This isn't the property all around the house when there were already gardeners. I think you get the point. These were chores that were designed for it to take me literally all day. So I really rarely could do the things that were fun and joyful that I wanted. I had to be put to work. And there were only a couple things that allowed me to get out of the chore list. I'd have to be really sick, not slightly sick, but very sick, which I learned how to do. And my body made me get sick in order to get this reprieve. Or there would have to be something regarding like school and exams, like a big report due, or there was a test I was studying for. And that could help me get out of it, but it certainly wasn't going to help me go see my friends or go play or be able to get out of that house. And my heart would sink every morning that I would see there was a note, and there wasn't always a note. Just like her personality wasn't always the same. Her demeanor wasn't always the same. The abuse wasn't always the same. There was nothing that was consistent. I would have rather had consistent abuse that I could plan for, embrace myself for, and numb myself to. But there was no prediction in this matrix in the house. And the one prediction I would say is usually after she was nicer to me or it was a benign day where things seemed more peaceful, or where I was at a sleepover with a friend or had my birthday, or, was during the holidays and I got gifts and I was with my grandparents and it was like back to business and would be slammed with this list. And if she really hated me, it would just be scribbled with her first name, just like she would do for an employee. It wouldn't even be mom. Oftentimes, it wouldn't even address me by name. It would just say daughter. Sometimes it said nothing. Fucking hated those. I hated those lists. And I hated her. That's when my hatred of her just started seething and seething more inside, and hatred for the world, because I spent enough time at friends' homes. And now that I was in sixth grade and you start talking to your friends, and I would have dance, go to dance classes, and I had my friends there that we would talk. And I was so hyper vigilant at other people's houses too. And I was seeing all the things. Meanwhile, my friends were oblivious to everything going on because they didn't have to be hyper vigilant. And I always thought it was so weird. Made me feel like an alien, like something was wrong with me, something was different about me, because I was always 3 steps ahead of everyone, including the parents, which, by the way, impressed everyone's parents. They would always report back to my mom how well behaved I am, how polite I am, how thoughtful I am, how I eat everything that's put in front of me, how I'm the easiest kid to have over. And of course, my mom loved this, and I loved it because that kept me out of trouble. But I had to work and work for that. And I didn't know any other way. It was my norm. But I knew that doing all these chores was not normal because of spending time at other people's houses. And I knew it was weird. And I also would try to, share some of it with some friends. And they were so perplexed, it didn't even compute in their mind. So I knew it was something that I couldn't share with anyone. And when I would go over to my dad's house, which there were no sleepovers there, when I would end up over there on a Tuesday night or a Saturday, my dad didn't give me any chores. And it was really confusing. And everything was predictable over there. My dad didn't really talk much. He was super, super chill, a man of few words. And I guess the only thing that was predictable is how chill it was and how quiet it was. And there was no chaos, and there were no phones ringing. There were no doorbells being constantly going. There weren't people coming and going. There wasn't all of this stimulus. There wasn't anything I had to do other than play video games, board games with him, tell him what I wanted to eat for dinner. And because my nervous system was so used to that cortisol being pumping all of the time, and all of my neurons being so lit up, when I would even get into my father's car, everything was so muted down. It was like someone pressed the mute button on a blaring radio, and it felt like I was in outer space. It felt so weird. It made me even feel more uncomfortable because it was such a dramatic shift that I couldn't trust it. My body didn't know what to do with it because I wasn't around it enough to understand it. No one talked to me about it, including my father. And so I just had to kind of adjust and go with it. But I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I always found it so weird. And I even found it kind of boring, and it made me feel tired But when looking back, it's because my nervous system could finally rest. And of course, I'm tired. And a lot of times I would be watching, my dad would buy those Disney movies when they came in that, those big white cases, the VHS cases that made that like kind of little bit of a squeaking noise when you opened them and had the really bright, colorful color. And my dad bought every single one for me, and then he had them all displayed, and I could go pick which movie I watched, and I'd watch a movie and I'd fall asleep and then play a video game, and then I'd have a snack, and the snacks would be fun snacks. It wouldn't be like tofu and celery. It would be like ramen noodles, or there would be a fun like pasta or something. And then he would let me have like a Klondike bar, and it was really tasty and exciting and in that sense, but I would always fall asleep over there. And I didn't want to wake up. It was like I could finally rest. And, that was really a blessing because at least I got some form of reprieve during the week, even though it was so uncomfortable for me. And my mom's hiring all of these people, and when I'm around her in all the places, she's talking to everyone about how she's hiring, and she's looking for this person, she's looking for that person. There's so many people. Even with all of my hypervigilance, I couldn't keep them all straight. And some of this is probably blurry, which is very common for someone who has complex PTSD and is an abuse survivor. But I remember that she hired, so to speak, a family friend, but this wasn't real family. My mom called people who she was even dating or people in the neighborhood that she decided to be close to who were her new form of supply. She would kind of refer to them as family, and it'd be really confusing to me. And this person who she hired, and I am going to name his name because there are people listening to this who probably still correspond with this person, who remember this person, and this person is a predator, and I don't give a fuck anymore. And his name is Adam. And I grew up in an area where it was heavily populated with Greeks. And so, which is beautiful because I did feel a sense of family and belonging and all the wonderful Greek customs. And anyone who's Greek who listens or knows the Greeks, they really stick together. And he was Greek, and he was referred to by someone who my mom respected, I would say, used and respected at the same time. And I don't know what else was checked in terms of skill. It was also kind of like a favor because this was someone who literally looked like a monster. Such severe cystic acne that it covered all of his face. I mean, disfigured cystic acne, and was losing his hair at an early age. And so when he came there, I believe he was like 19. And it was not easy for him to get a job because of his looks. Like I'm talking like pus would be oozing from these things. They were not being treated. And it was definitely my mom doing a favor in exchange for whatever the fuck else she wanted from this person. Okay. And like I shared in chapter 1, my mom, the good side of her is she always gave a chance to the underdog, to people who were less privileged, to people who had challenges. And I do believe there was a sincere part of her that did that because my mom grew up poor. And my mom grew up, as a woman in a man's world, in the business world, and had to like fight her way there. And I do believe there was a sincere part in there, or maybe it's just that I want to believe that. And then the other side is it really fueled her narcissism because she would win awards and get all these mentions, and people would just be so impressed because of all the people she gave chances to and how helpful she was to all different communities and blah, 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 blah. And I remember my mom really ramped up her dating. She was low on supply that time period after the third husband, the alcoholic, whatever reprieve that she had in between there, where I became her companion and I was her date and I was going all the places with her, which I loved. That was over. That wasn't filling her supply. It wasn't giving her what she needed. And so she was full force in on a whole nother level that I'd never seen before to get her male attention and male supply. And she could not, for whatever reason, maybe my nanny was sick. She couldn't find someone to watch me while she went out on one of her dates. And so she asked Adam, who is a very new employee, this 19-year-old, to babysit. And again, I'm 11 years old. And I was excited because he's 19. As much as, I loved my nanny, she was a granny nanny, and now I'm 11 and I want to do more fun things and talk about trending things and stuff like that. And I never had a brother. I never had that kind of influence around me. And he talked to me like I was an adult and not like a kid. It's not like he talked to me like how my grandparents talked to me. He was like, do you want to get Subway? What do you want on Subway? I'm watching the Bulls game. Let's watch the Bulls game. You know, Treated me truly like I felt seen and heard. And I felt like, I was being spoken to like an adult, not a child. And I saw myself as an adult because I was already trained to be one at that point. And I instantly was excited. I instantly loved it. I instantly thought it was great. And, he let me stay up late with him and watch I don't remember one of the late night shows, I'm trying to remember who was on then, like a Jay Leno or something like that. And, or it was like Saturday Night Live, it was like a show that wouldn't normally be able to stay up for. And it was so cool. And then my mom asked me, how it was. And I said how great it was. And I wanted him to only watch me. I didn't want my nanny to because that was boring and that wasn't fun. And this was so much fun. And then pretty quickly, he would ask if I wanted to shoot hoops during his lunchtime at work on the weekends and even after work. And then he would ask my mom, if he could take me to TCBY, which is the country's best yogurt. You guys remember that frozen yogurt company. And I didn't get a ton of treats, mind you, when you're raised, from an anorexic with an anorexic, mom. So that was exciting. It would take me to TCBY and I could get my white chocolate mousse with the peanut butter chips on top and even extra peanut butter chips. And then my mom would have him run errands, fill up the tank in her car, like a personal assistant on top of him being in charge of the warehouse. And I would go with him and he would blast music and it'd be music that I also liked. And the windows would be down. And I truly felt like I was free for the first time because I couldn't do that with my dad because that was not the vibe with my dad whatsoever. My mom, I had to do whatever I needed to do to be in her good graces. And I wasn't certainly going to be willing to show that I was joyful at all because she didn't like it if I was too happy. She didn't like it if I was too content, too at peace, having too much fun. Things felt too easy for me. That would not have gone well. And he would, take me to go get McDonald's, but, he'd be like, you can't say anything to your mom. And I loved that because I had this intense joy about that inside of me. Like, haha, she doesn't know. Like that it felt vengeful. It felt like I had some control over my life. And my mom's dating escalated more and more and more. And I don't think, looking back, she wanted my nanny to know how much she was dating and how many different men. Like, she didn't want people knowing her business. That's how she kept people also like in control. And I think that's also why she didn't want just one person watching me. She wanted to have more than one. Like, no one held all the keys to the kingdom, no one had all the information. That was one of her tactics. And so I had Adam a lot of times. And my mom, if there was any guilt she had, or any sort of twinge of a feeling of I've been out every night this week, which I don't know if she did. Likely she didn't. I want to think she did, but we know that's probably not the case with a narcissist. That was all gone because I was thrilled. And she gave Adam a credit card for the company. He was allowed to take me out. So we started going out to like TGIF Fridays. We started going out and like doing things. We would go, then it escalated to he became my driver and he drove me to school. He drove me to dance. That became one of his jobs. He drove me to friends' houses when I was sleeping over. He would pick me up. We would go to the grocery store together if my mom was low on stuff. And then it escalated to like, he would take me to go to concerts that I wanted to see. He would take me to like restaurants in the downtown area. And before that period happened, where it really escalated to like going to concerts, going to these trending restaurants, which gives obviously date vibes. Like, why would a 19-year-old want to be spending every night, let alone weeknights, with an 11-year-old girl, even getting paid, right? Like, truly, that's weird. And I don't think he got even paid every time he was with me either. I think that things were paid for, like food and stuff, but I don't think he was getting paid every time. God, I would love to see some of those receipts, or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it's not necessary. And because I was in dance and I was very physically active, right? Like I played sports, but I was more so like heavily into all kinds of dance. Like I wanted to be a competitive dancer, and I liked going to all these dance classes and moving my body, and I'd be away, having that dancing and ice skating and doing things like that. You spend a lot of hours practicing. You're a lot of hours outside of the house. And I had such a great dance instructor. Her name was Robin. I don't remember her last name. I've tried to like find ways to find her, to contact her, to thank her. She was someone that God put there to show me that there are safe, nurturing women out there. And she was so lovely, and I was enamored by her. She's so talented. And I spent a lot of hours at the studio, and it was a release, obviously, in my body. And I remember the other girls and even Robin definitely commented on how much that I sweat. And it wasn't like pools of sweat, like a hyperhidrosis where it'd be like a medical condition. But I definitely was the sweatiest girl in the class. And I was in remarkable shape. And I remember like that's when I started learning ways to try to hide it. I was embarrassed by it. And, now I know, I'm sure that was a result of all the excess cortisol, in my system that was pumping in my body, trying to expel and detox everything, that was going on. that was going on with my body, and also things that I was pretty much being forced to ingest. And my point in telling you about all the dancing is that I was often very sore. Just like you heard all those stories of the US Olympics teams, the gymnasts who put that disgusting motherfucker behind bars who abused them, that was doing all like the physical therapy on them. And when you're, even if you're young, but you're doing that kind of hours and hours and hours of practice every week, you get tight muscles, you get sore. And I definitely felt sore all the time. And I remember I said something, I think I probably said something to Adam about that, or he just somehow used that. I don't remember. The grooming was so slick and so seamless. I couldn't even tell you when it started and when it transitioned. And he rubbed like my shoulders and my arms, and it felt so good to have like that tension release in that area. And then it became like a nightly thing. And then he would massage, my hands, my legs, my feet. And then he started massaging my breasts and did it in a massaging way. I did think it was weird. I didn't like the sensation in my body. I definitely froze, but I also thought, well, he's doing this to help me. Like, there's nothing weird about it. Like, he's doing it to help me. It kind of feels weird, but like, it's also because I am sore, and even my breasts were sore. Of course they were. I was going through puberty. They were incredibly sore. And somehow he was allowed to be in my bedroom with the door closed almost every single night down the hall for my mom. And my mom knew he was in there. Now we would also play video games. I had a TV in my room. We would play like I don't remember. There was other shit that we would play, but like he was in my room that often to where it was normal and she was fine with it. And what I remember from here is that I had this pink TV in my room, and I would have the TV on and typically fall asleep to the TV. Um, it probably was my way of dissociating and helped me sleep. And my next memory was the reruns would come on of like old shows starting at 10:30 at night, 10:30 or 11 at night. And by the time the show MASH came on, which has a very nostalgic song for the opening credits of the show, every fucking time that came on, it was as though I was hypnotized. I was in a twilight. So he would wait until he knew I was asleep and then really start molesting me. And I wasn't fully asleep, but I wasn't awake. It was like I was in that twilight. So that haunting fucking music of that show is so ingrained in my mind that if I am out and about or somehow I flip a station and that I hear even like the beginning parts of that music, all the blood drains from my body to this day. Before we continue, I want to pause here. So many of you are sitting on stories, on gifts, on talent, on expertise, and you know that you have it. You doubt yourself a lot of times, but ultimately, you know you have it. You have a desire to help millions of people, and you want to make a lot of money doing this. You want to make a difference. You want to leave a legacy. You want to do something fulfilling with your life that goes even beyond money, but you don't know the how to attract the ideal clients, how to stand out in a saturated market, how to be able to word your messaging and your offer so people understand how this is going to help them and what they can transform into. And you don't want to sound like everyone else, and you don't want to minimize what it is that you do. And it just all can feel like too much. I know you. I understand you. It took me 10 years to start Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and business coaching academy. And I already was a successful entrepreneur, and I already had a couple million in the bank. And I was a professionally trained TV newscaster, and I had all these things, and it didn't matter because I was afraid. I was afraid it wouldn't work. Who's going to listen to me? Why would someone hire me when they can hire someone else? And my only regret is that I didn't go all in sooner. I would toe dip. I would try a little bit of this. I would dream. I would manifest. I would plan. I would take courses. I even like would go to some conferences, and it would make me feel good like I was doing something, but I wasn't really taking any action in order to get any results. And I felt like I was so alone in it. And this is where my Project Me Posse business and money coaching membership came in. I wanted to create something that was literally accessible to everybody all over the world, to where you would get the strategy, but you would have the support of people who are genuine and who get it and who are going after big things and who are cheering you on, who you can collaborate with, you could cry with, you could laugh with, you can celebrate with, while being guided by the leading experts in the industry who are not going to hold back, are going to tell you the simple, direct, clear way on how to get it done. And that is why I have created my biggest Black Friday sale ever right now, where you are getting insane gifts. I mean, you're getting my launching masterclass plus my launch calendar and map. So, how to put anything out into the interwebs and have it sell. Your Ideal Client Magnifier System. This is how you get thousands and thousands of ideal clients coming to you versus you have to going to them because they're so attracted to what it is you have to say. Of course, you're getting my In the Abundance Zone 90-day guided planner and journal. Plus, we made a really fun abundance sticker sheet to go with it. You're getting my abundance shower and bath meditation series, which is brand new. I mean, this is insane. Plus, when you choose the annual option, which is our most popular option, you get 2 months off and my Nail Your Niche Masterclass for free. This is insane. It makes it like $2 a day. We also have a month-to-month option where you get $50 off your first month right now. I've made it so there is no reason not to do it. Like, you would actually be insane not to do it. And I'm encouraging you right now, just take a moment in this episode, go join the damn posse, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. Go to projectmewithtiffany.com/Black Friday 24. The first 33 people get these gifts. Okay. And I don't know how many of these spots are already gone. My guess is almost all of them at this point. If you go to the page and it says membership is full, then it's full for the year. Okay. We won't be able to get in. You won't be able to get in until sometime next year. So I would make it a priority, do the thing, set yourself up so your success is inevitable. And I'll be honored and privileged and excited to be your coach along the way. These nights in my bedroom taught me not just that there's evil in the world, not just that you can't trust people. It didn't just teach me, the art of dissociating and completely checking out of your body. What it taught me is that I wasn't enough. It taught me that I had to give of myself things that I didn't want to in order to receive love and attention. This is someone that I was taught to literally refer to as my brother. And all of her employees would say, oh, yeah, Adam's basically like her brother. And I felt so excited to have a brother. And I would tell people at school, I basically have a brother. I call him my brother. And my brother's picking me up from school. Oh, my brother's going to get us. Oh, my brother's going to pick us up from the mall. It made me feel so cool. It made me feel so special until I learned that I had to give something up. I had to trade something to get that love and affection and a brother. that it wasn't enough. Me being Tiffany was not enough to get that. I had to give an exchange. And that's when I completely separated from my body. As I'm sharing this with you right now, I can picture myself as a separate entity looking down at myself on that bed. And I would float away to the top right corner of that bedroom. And it was like I even pictured myself as this like spirit that was off in that corner. It was like my soul left my body and the soul was up in that corner, hanging out, kind of looking down at my body, being abused, being used for what for however how long and whatever he wanted to do. And that soul, that spirit, that entity in that corner wasn't going to come back into my body until we absolutely knew it was safe to come back in my body. And that wasn't until the next morning. I don't have any clear memories. Once in a while, I get PTSD flashbacks and night terrors, but our bodies are so amazing and our minds are so amazing at protecting ourselves from extreme trauma that there's things that we've blocked out and things that we've forgotten. That's a blessing. That's because it's too much for our system to handle. And it can be so difficult for survivors because it's like, we can misremember and go, maybe this didn't really happen. And it's easy to be gaslit and it's easy to gaslight ourselves because it's like, well, did it happen? It seems like a bad dream. And I don't know if it happened. And it's really fuzzy. And will perpetrators do things to make it fuzzy, like molesting you when you're in twilight of sleep, drugging you, which we'll get to that very soon here. And then I had to act like everything was normal the next day. And I developed this strong sense of false self. It was just a character. And I blocked this far away because I wanted the love and affection and attention from this person that felt so good. This is someone who would get me cards, would go and get me gifts, that would bring me frozen yogurt and treats when I was sick. And one thing I noticed over time is that I did not get molested when I was sick. I mean, God forbid, who would want to catch something, right? And my mom didn't make me do the chores when I was sick, and she had some level of nurturing when I was sick. There was some kindness there. And so I'm sure you're not surprised to learn I was sick all the time. Plus, my nervous system being shot, I caught everything. And the story that was created when I would be regularly at the pediatrician office, that the pediatrician signed off on because the pediatrician was trying to fuck my mother as well. Thank you. And was playing grab ass with her in front of me. Thank you, Dr. Breslow, who I know has since passed, but you're disgusting. And she would say, I know I didn't breastfeed, so I'm sure, her immune system is low and that's why she's sick all the time. And he co-signed on all of it. And so I thought that I was sick all the time, and the school thought I was sick all the time because I just had like a weakened immune system. Well, you're damn right I did, from all the stress I was going through. But being sick gave me a reprieve. Being sick gave me a fucking break. So I was sick all the time. And quite frankly, I was sick all the time, even in my adult life, until I made the connection between the two. And lo and behold, I am almost never sick now. The amount of time and access that Adam had to me increased exponentially and very quickly, where we would be going on full on dates and in front of my mom, and she would take me clothes shopping for them. And some of you will remember like the brands like Wet Seal, Contempo Casuals, basically like the original like Forever 21, the original kind of Zara. And I would be wearing these hoe type clothes for a girl in middle school, very adult looking. I'm talking micro mini leather skirts. I'm talking crop tops. I'm talking like platform heels, the whole thing. And this was not behind her back. These would be like considered trendy date hotspots that I would go on today as an adult, like where you needed reservations, where they cost a lot of money. It was a place to be seen. I was going to the bars. I'm like in a major city, and I felt like an adult. I felt like a grown up. I was getting to do really cool things and adult things that my friends weren't doing. And I was getting bought like clothes, like expensive clothes, all sorts of stuff. And I was getting to spend time with someone who was fun. We'd be in a sports car. I'm assuming he had my mom's credit card, is my guess, or is being reimbursed because these activities couldn't have been cheap. And I was able to have fun and let loose. And the price I had to pay happened, back in my bedroom at the house, but I could float away for that. So I was willing to trade that. I could black out, I could cut it out in order to be able to have that kind of love and attention and affection and fun and be away from my mom and feel like I could be myself. And I convinced myself of all sorts of things. And one of the things that helped convince myself is obviously that my mom knew I was going to all of these places with him. So I was like, well, maybe it's because I look so much older for my age. I'm the tallest girl in my school. My mom had started to like really put me into like the whole modeling thing. Everyone at all of the parties at the house was always like, "You're so mature for your age. Wow, I thought you were 17. I thought you were 16. You're so developed. You're so this. You look like a model." Like I heard all these things constantly. So I thought, it was kind of almost my fault because I looked so mature and like developed for my age. And so and because I acted mature, that must be why. I mean, why would a kid assume that their mom was pimping them out almost every night of the week? I mean, this was constantly. And then what I had to trade in order to get all of this went to another level. I will never forget when I was in the car with him and we were going to the fancy mall in the area. And this was at a time where, like, I mean, what middle schooler doesn't love going to the mall? And he always bought me something. Hello, that's part of the grooming process, right? That's what a pimp would do. And we went through the drive-through ATM. And he wanted me to press the buttons, like the code on the ATM. But to do so, I would obviously have to completely lean over him from the passenger seat and through the window to do that. And I go, well, I don't know how I'm going to get over there. And he's like, well, just lean over and do it. And it's like, I'd never pressed the buttons at an ATM before. I didn't have a bank account. Like that kind of felt like exciting to me. And this is someone, as weird as it sounds, I trusted him because the pattern was in the bedroom, right? That was the pattern. And it felt like a pretty consistent pattern. So when we were out and about and doing things, it felt like it was my brother. And I still remember his code, which is his birthday, which shows how much of a fucking moron he is. But anyway, and I wish I didn't remember the code because I know when it's June 23rd every fucking year, I know without a glaring doubt, he comes into my mind, even though I don't want to. And that's just part of what happens with trauma. But it's a day I take to celebrate myself now and honor myself. and all that I've been through and all that I've survived. In fact, maybe when I launch the physical book, maybe it'll be on the fucking 23rd of June. Who knows? So I did the code and he groped me um when I was doing it. And I flinched and he was like, "What's your problem?" And I didn't know what to say because that scared me. And I was like, "Well, I probably said something like, well, I wasn't expecting that, or I'm sure I said something." And he was like, "Well, whatever, it's no big deal. Like, what's your problem?" And then he grabbed my hand to hold my hand like one would do with a boyfriend or, or like a partner, right? And I didn't want to. And he squeezed it pretty hard. And it was clear, like, you're fucking holding my hand. And from then on, the whole thing went to another level to where it was full on like he was dating me. And when we would go to these restaurants, he would be sitting across from me and he would be holding my fucking hand at the table. I just want to keep reminding you, I'm 11 years old, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I mean, this went on for years, but just picture a middle schooler with clear braces and out in public with tons of people around, packed restaurants. I mean, there's even paparazzi outside some of these restaurants. Okay. That's how trendy I'm talking. And would order champagne, would order wine, would order rum and cokes, and would have me drink them. And it made me feel like I was an adult, like, oh, I get to have something that people don't have. Like, that's cool. Never was questioned. And so it only reinforced that I obviously look so much older than my age and act older. And that's why these people aren't questioning anything. And it reinforced that, like, this is actually normal. Like, this isn't an odd thing. This is a normal thing to happen. Literally, I do not have a memory that even pops into my head right now of anyone, a waitress, a waiter, a maitre d', a patron, getting a side eye saying, does she have an ID? How old is she? We can't serve alcohol to her, nothing. And some of these were major fucking restaurant chains too. And I kept in my head for decades that I must have looked like one of these, like almost like those runway model girls where like they're walking like New York Fashion Week and they're really like 13, 14 years old, like a Brooke Shields, but they like look like they're 18, 19. And I had that in my head and it was reinforced over and over again by so many people. And one of my great, I guess we could call them counselors of, from all my different healing and stuff that I've gone through, had me go and find a picture of me at that age. And of course, I didn't want to. And when I did, it was shocking. I looked like I was in middle school. Yes, I definitely looked tall for my age, right? Like, I definitely look like I was at the high end of that spectrum, but I was fucking awkward. I was in fucking middle school. It was fucking obvious. I didn't look 18. Okay. Like, there was not a chance in hell. And we would come home from these dates, and sometimes my mom wasn't even there. She was sleeping over at some guy's house. Or she was in her bedroom with the guy and the door was shut. And Adam had full blown access to me, full blown support from my mom, full blown credit card. He could drive any of her cars at any time. I mean, he really could take me anywhere. I mean, I think that he could have even taken me away like on overnight trips And that might have even been allowed. I don't think I was taken anywhere overnight. I mean, he didn't really have to. He didn't have to. He didn't have to. It was happening right in the house. And the door a lot of times wasn't even shut anymore because he knew that my mom wasn't going to come down the hallway. Like there was no one was going to stop it. And that's when I learned that there was no one here to protect me. There was no one here to stop this, that this is how I earned my keep. This is how I got what I wanted. There was nothing for me to say, and I had to go along with it. By the time I hit the seventh grade, my mom enlisted me in another new role that I had to play. One that I'm sure I had to be old enough and sophisticated enough and practiced enough and broken down enough and trusted enough to be able to do it with pristine accuracy as I did. And so while I was juggling being in and out of dissociation, while trading my body, while doing the endless age and appropriate chores, while making sure my appearance was maintained, and I smiled when I was supposed to smile, and I was sad when I was supposed to be sad, and only getting breaks when I was sick or when I actually was sleeping and not being molested while I was sleeping at night. She had to add something else to the list that would forever change how I looked at people, how I looked at the male species. This is what taught me to be a master people pleaser, something that had caused and has caused more anguish, more time wasted, more energy wasted, more heartbreak than anything else in my entire life was when she had me do this deed. I think this is a perfect place to end chapter 3. And I just want to remind you that you're not alone. If this brought up anything for you and you need to talk, you can swipe up and access the RAIN hotline. Also, Google any hotlines or support groups in your area. There are tons of them all over the world that are free. You're not alone. And I just want to say, like, this story is not easy for me to tell. You might be assuming it's easy because of the tone in my voice or because of how I tell it or because I'm able to tell it without constantly crying. This has taken me decades of intensive therapy, inner child healing work, somatic work, art therapy, equine therapy, I mean, aqua therapy. It's taken me a lot to get here because one thing that I always knew in going through all this is someday I'm going to share the truth with everybody and hope that this helps other people. And I knew that. I knew someday that I was meant to do this. But that doesn't mean that this doesn't feel highly vulnerable and terrifying to me. And it really means a lot when you guys share this episode with someone who you know will appreciate it, who's been through a lot of shit in their life, someone who's overcome a lot, or someone who's going through a lot. You can leave a 5-star Apple podcast review. The written reviews really help the show on Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, you can tap the 5 stars. You can subscribe and comment on ProjectME TV on YouTube. Share this episode in your Instagram, Facebook stories, on TikTok. Share that this is a book. That would really show me that you want me to continue sharing it on my podcast because I've not shared anything like this before on here. And if I don't see enough continued responses of you guys wanting it, I'm not going to keep sharing the chapters on here. I will continue to do this, but I'm not going to continue to put it on this public platform that is free in this way. So I just ask you to pay this forward, share this, take 30 seconds to write an Apple Podcast review. You can also reply to any of my emails. It really does go a long way because if you want support someday in you sharing your story and you doing scary things. You have to show up and support other people who are paving the way and maybe a little bit ahead of you and doing it first. Wishing you great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you. Remember, we only have a little bit of time left. There's only days left in my biggest Black Friday sale ever for you to join my Project Me Posse business and money coaching membership. Go to projectmewithtiffany.com/Black Friday 24 for all the details. I'd love to see you in there.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.